In Judge Judy's courtroom, people had seen liars break down, scammers get exposed, and arrogant defendants lose their confidence in seconds. But there was one thing no one had ever seen: Judge Judy cry, not once. For 25 years, she had built a reputation like steel. Sharp questions, cold truth, no excuses, no weakness. Until one morning, a broken old veteran walked into her courtroom with a folded letter in his jacket pocket. And that letter changed everything. His name was James Mitchell. He was 67 years old, but life had aged him far beyond that. His face carried deep lines, the kind made by sleepless nights, grief, hunger, and years of trying to survive when nobody was watching. He stood in the defendant's spot wearing an old military jacket. The fabric was faded. The patches were worn. But on his collar, a purple heart pin still caught the light. Across from him sat Patricia Brennan. She was 52, dressed in an expensive designer suit, calm, polished, and confident. She had brought a leather briefcase full of documents, photos, reports, and invoices. To anyone watching, it looked like a simple case. A landlord suing a tenant. Patricia claimed James owed her $8,500 for unpaid rent, property damage, lease violations, and refusing to leave the apartment after eviction. The photographs looked damaging: holes in the wall, a broken sink, damaged door frames, a studio apartment that looked like it had been destroyed. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses and looked through the file. "Patricia Brennan versus James Mitchell," she said. "Unpaid rent, property damage, lease violations." Then she looked up at James. He was standing perfectly still, staring down at his hands. Judge Judy had seen thousands of defendants before. She could usually tell within moments who was lying, who was hiding something, and who had given up. And something about James looked different. He did not look angry. He did not look guilty. He looked defeated. Patricia spoke first. "Your Honor, this is very simple. Mr. Mitchell rented one of my apartments and destroyed it. I tried to work with him, but he refused to pay, refused to follow the lease, and refused to leave when I filed for eviction. I had to call the police 3 times. She laid the photographs in front of the court like weapons. Judge Judy studied them carefully, then turned to James. "Mr. Mitchell, what do you have to say?" For a moment, James said nothing. Then his hand slowly moved toward his jacket pocket. His fingers trembled as he pulled out a folded piece of paper. It had been opened and closed so many times that the edges were soft and worn. The paper was wrinkled, stained, and fragile. "Your Honor," he said, his voice breaking, "I have this. It's from my daughter. She wrote it before she died." The courtroom went silent. Judge Judy took the letter from him and unfolded it carefully. Her eyes moved across the first few lines. Then something in her expression changed. The sharpness faded. She looked at James, then at Patricia, then back at the letter. She read more slowly. The courtroom stayed frozen. Even the bailiff noticed the shift and stepped closer. Patricia, who had walked in with total confidence, suddenly shifted in her seat. Judge Judy placed the letter on the desk, but kept one hand resting on it. "Mrs. Brennan," she said quietly, "this letter is from Mr. Mitchell's daughter. Her name was Sarah." Patricia's face tightened. Judge Judy continued, "Sarah Mitchell was also a veteran, an Army medic, 2 tours overseas. And according to this letter, she lived in your apartment complex." The courtroom became tense. Judge Judy's voice turned colder. "She fell behind on rent while she was dying of cancer. And you evicted her 2 months before she passed away." Gasps filled the room. Patricia went pale, but quickly tried to recover. "Your Honor, I don't see how a personal letter is relevant to this case." Judge Judy leaned forward. "Oh, it's relevant. Very relevant. Because this letter describes a pattern. And last night, I had my team look into your business practices." Patricia froze. "And what they found," Judge Judy said, "is going to change everything about this case." Before that morning, Patricia Brennan believed she was walking into another easy judgment. Another broken veteran, another unpaid bill, another apartment cleared out. But she had no idea that the letter in Judge Judy's hand was about to expose something much darker, a pattern, a scheme, and a list of veteran families who had all been crushed the same way. Judge Judy looked down again at Sarah's letter. "Mrs. Brennan, you own Patriot Gardens Apartments, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Patricia said. "6 buildings, 140 units. I've been in property management for 18 years. And you advertise those apartments as veteran-friendly housing." Patricia straightened slightly, as if proud. "Yes. My father was a veteran. I believe in giving back. I offer below-market rent to qualified veterans." Judge Judy did not smile. "How noble." Then her voice sharpened. "In the past 3 years, how many veteran tenants have you evicted?" Patricia hesitated. "I don't keep an exact count. Try. Maybe 10 or 12. Judge Judy opened a folder. "According to public court records, you filed eviction cases against 23 veteran tenants in 3 years. Not 10. Not 12. 23. The courtroom murmured. Patricia's lawyer whispered to her, but she brushed him off. Judge Judy continued. "And here's what I find interesting. Every veteran tenant you evicted had lived in your apartments for between 8 and 11 months. Every one of them was charged for property damage that exceeded their security deposit, and every one of them was sent to collections when they could not pay." She looked directly at Patricia. "Does that sound like a coincidence to you?" Patricia's face flushed. "Your Honor, many veterans struggle with PTSD and other issues. Property damage happens. I'm sympathetic, but I can't absorb those costs." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Sympathetic, interesting word. She lifted Sarah's letter again. "Let's talk about Sarah Mitchell." The room fell silent. "Sarah moved into your complex in March of 2020. She was receiving chemotherapy for stage 4 breast cancer. She told you about her condition when she signed the lease because she needed access for treatment. In November, she fell 2 months behind on rent." Judge Judy paused. Not because she was careless, because her cancer treatments were destroying her financially. She told you her VA benefits were delayed. She asked for time. How did you respond? Patricia's voice hardened. "Your Honor, I'm a landlord, not a charity. I have mortgages, taxes, maintenance. So you evicted her. I followed the law." Judge Judy's voice went flat. "Sarah Mitchell died in January of 2021, 2 months after you evicted her." The courtroom reacted again. "She died homeless, Mrs. Brennan, in a veteran's shelter. Because you put a dying woman on the street." Patricia looked away. Judge Judy lowered her gaze to the letter. "Let me read what Sarah wrote to her father 2 weeks before she died." Her voice was steady, but strained. "Dad, I'm sorry I couldn't fight the eviction. The treatments left me too weak. Mrs. Brennan came to the hospital last week, asking when I would pay the money she said I owed. I told her I was dying. She said that wasn't her problem. Dad, if she ever comes after you, please don't give up. She targets veterans because she thinks we're broken. But we survived war. We can survive people like her. Find a way to expose what she's doing." The courtroom was completely silent. James stood there with tears running down his face. And then, for the first time in all those years on television, Judge Judy's eyes filled with tears. She blinked hard. Her jaw tightened. She placed the letter down with care. "Mrs. Brennan," she said, "you went to a cancer ward to collect a debt from a dying veteran?" Patricia whispered, "That's not how it happened." "Then explain it." Patricia had no answer. Judge Judy closed the folder. "We're taking a recess. When we return, I'm going to show this courtroom exactly what my team found about your business." When court resumed, Patricia no longer looked confident. James stood straighter than before, as if hearing Sarah's words had given him strength. Judge Judy returned with a thick folder. "In the last 3 years," she said, "your company collected $420,000 in deposits and damage claims from veteran tenants." Patricia shifted. "Property damage is expensive, Your Honor." "Yes," Judge Judy said. "Let's discuss your contractor." She turned a page. "RB Construction Services charged your tenants an average of $4. $200 per apartment for repairs. Holes in walls, broken fixtures, stained carpets. Repairs that should normally cost a fraction of that, Patricia said. I use quality contractors. Judge Judy leaned forward. RB Construction is owned by Robert Brennan. Your brother. Whispers exploded through the courtroom. Patricia's lawyer lowered his head. Patricia snapped, "There is nothing illegal about hiring family." "No," Judge Judy said. "But there is something illegal about inflating repair bills, targeting vulnerable tenants, and using your brother's company to make fraudulent claims." Then Judge Judy laid it out. You advertise below-market housing to veterans. They trust the flags, the patriotic slogans, the promise of support. They move in believing they have found a safe place. Then after a few months, you begin building a file. Noise complaints, minor damages, photos, warnings. Around month 8 or 9, you hit them with a massive repair bill. When they cannot pay, you evict them, keep the deposit, send them to collections, damage their credit, and rent the unit to the next veteran. Patricia stared at the floor. 23 families, Judge Judy said. And now, Mr. Mitchell. James finally spoke. She told me she remembered Sarah. She said she felt bad about what happened. She said she wanted to help me honor my daughter by giving me a fresh start. Judge Judy looked at him gently. Mr. Mitchell, she wasn't giving you a fresh start. She was setting a trap. Patricia suddenly stood. This is outrageous. I run a legal business. If tenants damage property, they pay for it. That's how renting works. Judge Judy's voice cut through the room. Sit down, Mrs. Brennan. Before Patricia could respond, a man stood up in the back of the courtroom. Your Honor, may I speak? Judge Judy looked at him. State your name. Michael Torres. Navy veteran. I was also one of her tenants. Judge Judy nodded. Approach. Michael walked forward with a limp, using a cane. She did the same thing to me, he said. I installed grab bars in my bathroom because I'm disabled and needed them to shower. She called it unauthorized construction and charged me thousands to remove them. When I couldn't pay, she evicted me. I was homeless for 8 months. Judge Judy turned back to Patricia. How many, Mrs. Brennan? Patricia said nothing. And that silence said everything. Judge Judy closed the folder. I'm issuing my judgment. The courtroom held its breath. Mr. Mitchell, I have practiced law for over 40 years. I have seen cruelty, deception, and greed in many forms. But what I have seen here today is one of the most calculated and heartless schemes I have ever encountered. James lowered his eyes. You were targeted. Judge. Judy picked up Sarah's letter. Your daughter wrote this to protect you, and today it did more than that. It exposed a pattern that may save many others. Then she turned to Patricia. Mrs. Brennan, I find your testimony completely without credibility. The evidence shows predatory behavior against vulnerable veterans. You used patriotic branding as bait. You used inflated damage claims as a weapon. You used your brother's company to support fraudulent charges. This is not a simple landlord-tenant dispute. This is exploitation. Patricia's face was white. Judgment for James Mitchell. He owes you nothing. 0. The courtroom erupted. Judge Judy raised her voice. Additionally, Mrs. Brennan, you owe Mr. Mitchell $8,500 for fraudulent damage claims, $15,000 for emotional distress, and $25,000 in punitive damages. She paused. Total judgment, $48,500. The courtroom burst into applause. The bailiff had to call for order. Judge Judy was not finished. I am also referring this matter to the State Attorney General for investigation. You will provide a full list of every veteran tenant you have evicted in the past 5 years. Your business records and your brother's contracting company will be audited. Any veteran who was overcharged will receive restitution. Patricia tried to speak. Your Honor, this is extreme. Judge Judy's voice turned ice cold. I am not destroying your business, Mrs. Brennan. You destroyed it the moment you decided grieving veterans were easy money. The hearing ended, but the story did not. Veterans in the courtroom surrounded James. Some shook his hand. Some Some cried. Some told him they had been victims too. A woman who ran a veterans' transition housing program offered him a place to stay that very day. Another man from the VA offered to help speed up his benefits claim. For the first time in years, James was not alone. 3 months later, Patricia Brennan stood in a different courtroom facing criminal charges. More victims had come forward. 23 veteran families became 29. Investigators discovered hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent damage claims. Her brother's company had been paid for work that was overpriced or never properly done. Messages between them revealed how carefully the scheme had been planned. The jury did not take long. Patricia was found guilty on multiple counts, including fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy, and theft by deception. She was sentenced to prison. Her brother was sentenced too. Restitution was ordered for the victims. James sat in the courtroom when the sentence was read. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He only touched the folded letter in his jacket pocket. Sarah's letter, the letter that had saved him, the letter that had exposed the truth, the letter written by a dying daughter who still found the strength to protect her father. Months later, James began rebuilding his life. He moved into veteran housing. His delayed benefits finally came through. He used part of his settlement to help launch a housing protection fund in Sarah's name. That fund helped veterans facing fraudulent evictions, illegal charges, and landlords who saw them not as people, but as profit. The old apartment complex was eventually sold and turned into legitimate, affordable housing for veterans and low-income families. The fake patriotic signs came down. The flags that had once been used as camouflage for cruelty were removed. The building was renamed Mitchell House, in Sarah's honor. James attended the ceremony wearing his military jacket. Judge Judy stood beside him. A photo of the two of them appeared in newspapers across the country. Later, when asked about that day in her courtroom, Judge Judy said Sarah's letter was unlike anything she had ever read. It was not just a goodbye. It was evidence, it was a warning, it was truth. And truth, once spoken, has a way of breaking open even the strongest walls. James still visits Sarah's grave every Sunday. He brings flowers. He reads letters from veterans who were helped because of her. And every time, he tells her the same thing. Your letter saved them, baby girl. You told the truth. And people listened. One letter, one grieving father, one judge who refused to look away, and 29 families saved. Because sometimes justice does not begin with a loud voice. Sometimes it begins with a dying woman's final words, folded carefully inside an old military jacket, waiting for the day someone finally has the courage to read them aloud.